Recorded version of this session. We will be posting the recorded version of this session on our gsa.gov site, as well as on our YouTube channel, and there should be a link to that YouTube channel in the chat momentarily. If you would not like to participate in today's event because it is recorded, we certainly understand, and you are welcome to view the presentation after the fact once we post it on those aforementioned sites. I also would like to let everyone know that Zoom offers closed captioning capabilities. You can turn this on your end by clicking the captions option, which is either at the bottom of your screen. It might be hidden under the 3-dot more option. So if you would like captions to go along with today's presentation, please enable that on your end. Thank you. All right, so now we can do a formal welcome to today's presentation. My name is Eric Fulton. I am the National Program Manager for Customer Outreach and Communication. I'm based out of GSA headquarters in Washington, D.C. More importantly, I am delighted to be your host for today's edition of the Client Enrichment Series. We've got a great program lined up for you today. I believe this is the first time we're offering it as well. Congratulations to us all. Today's presentation is called New Tools for the New Workplace. And we have several subject matter experts with us today. They're going to review some of GSA's latest tools and resources that are going to help you and your organizations navigate the changing landscape of the federal workplace. All right, we have, like I said, several presenters on several subjects today. I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce them all. First, Ryan Booth serves as the lead account manager in the Office of Public Buildings Information Technology Services Division within GSA IT. In that role, his team manages the PBS IT governance and budget process, relationships with PBS application owners, as well as the Future of Federal Work program within GSA IT. Most recently, more germane to today's presentation, Ryan led the development of the Workplace Innovation Lab and designed the reservation system that customers can use to reserve conference rooms and individual workstations. Ryan's been with GSA for over 18 years, working both within PBS as well as GSA IT. We also have Jana Larson with us. Jana she serves as the National Program Manager of the Center of Co-working Services with GSA. This summer, she and her team launched 6 prototype federal co-working locations throughout the country. And so far, the program has received valuable feedback from customers and insights that will help shape the growth and future of shared space within the federal government. We'll certainly be hearing more about that later. We also have Jennifer Feliciano. She is a national planning manager in the Office of Portfolio Management and Customer Engagement. So in this role, she serves as the primary national point of contact between the Public Building Service and multiple federal agencies, including HUD, Department of Energy, NARA, FCC, CFTC, and the FTC. Prior to her current position, she was a national client analyst serving the IRS and HHS accounts within PBS, and she has 17 years of experience with our organization. We also have Valerie Butler. She is the Spatial Data Management, or SDM, Program Manager, and that's also part of PBS's Office of Portfolio Management and Customer Engagement. The SDM program measures and assigns space for GSA-owned properties. Valerie also serves as the application manager for the Inventory of Owned and Leased Properties, IOLP, which we will be hearing more about in just a few moments. We also have Sam Chaffee with us. Sam is a workplace strategist in GSA's Public Building Service. She started with GSA as an interior designer over 15 years ago, and her work has evolved from furniture and finish specifications to workplace projects at a time when GSA was working on mobility and testing new workplace concepts internally. So we have one other presenter that I will introduce momentarily, but before we dive into that, I do want to share just a few bits of housekeeping. We've automatically muted your audio, and that is to control the sound quality of our presentation. However, we do encourage you to ask questions based on our subject matter today, and for that, we have a Q&A pod, which you can find probably at the bottom of your screen there, or possibly under that triple-dot more option. We have subject matter experts in the Q&A pod, and time permitting, we will be pulling some of those questions out and asking our presenters live on the spot. Regardless, all of the questions that we receive, whether we answer them during this presentation or not, we will answer in a formal written Q&A document and make that available to you after this session and post it on our website, www.gsa.gov/CES. However, we are only able to pull questions out of the Q&A pod. There are a couple of other pods, but only the Q&A pod is where subject matter questions go. I just want to make sure that we are fairly clear on that. Because there is a pod that is the chat pod. And the chat pod is where we will be taking any technical questions. If you're having trouble with the slides, viewing or hearing the presentation, we have Client Enrichment Series team members in the chat pod, and that's where we'll be posting helpful links. But once again, subject matter questions should go into the Q&A pod. Now, to properly begin this session, I want to introduce one more special presenter. I believe we have Chuck Hardy with us today. Chuck is the Chief Architect and Chief Workplace Officer here at GSA. Now, as the agency's lead executive in charge of workplace strategy, leading GSA's workplace program, Chuck heads efforts across the country to support vital areas, including design and construction, real estate services, and procurement. He is responsible for research and development and the delivery of innovative workplace solutions throughout the federal government. Chuck, it's good to see you, and I understand you want to kick us off.
Yeah, just welcome everyone, and this is going to be a great session. There are a lot of new tools out there for workplace. You're going to hear about our will. You're going to hear about some of the things we've got going. I'll focus on what you're seeing here as our guiding principles, if you will. This was developed and created by a coalition of 100 participants, 18 federal agencies. So thank you all for your support in this. And it does kind of frame the times. And what I've told folks and what I've been using a lot in recent conversations is this concept of the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns. And the known knowns are we're going to need office, and there will always be a core office in place for everybody. Those known unknowns are at what level, but we know it's going to change over time, and people will be coming back at different levels. And how do we accommodate that? And then those known unknowns are, you can look at things like COVID, you can look at surges in missions, you can look at changes in budgets, all those kind of things that impact agencies that you don't know what's coming, but you want to be prepared for. So as we look at these guiding principles, we're looking at the fact that work can be done anywhere at any time and needs to be. It's a lot more flexible and agile than it once was, which builds in resiliency for us. And so that's a good thing. The office is necessary, as we all know, and as I just mentioned, but its purpose is shifting. So we have to figure out what and why and how are we using our office space to accommodate and accomplish our missions, and what does that look like now and going forward, not only with the additional tools you're going to hear about today, but the technology that's improved over the last 3 years, and that will continue to improve over the next 3 years. So how do we address that? And then distributed work is trusted work. During the pandemic, we discovered that it had a positive impact on operations. We just need to figure out how do you make that a steady state operation and not a response to a pandemic operation. And so as you look at distributed work, finding ways to make that a long-term functional effort. And then hybrid work arrangements benefit both the employees and the organization as we talk about employee satisfaction, we talk about recruitment, retention, all those kind of things. And as we layer in climate and sustainability on the commute times and all that kind of stuff, it starts to make it a much more integrated conversation and solution. So all these kind of things have teed you up to hear what will be some great presentations from the others on the line that will go over the tools that will help you live and bring forth some of these guiding principles. So back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Chuck. And as you said, we do have a great bit of things to talk about. So if we can kick over to the next slide, I just want to go over, we will be starting off talking about our Workplace Innovation Lab, segue into federal co-working. Then we'll be discussing the inventory of owned and leased properties. Then we'll be talking about vacant space, marketing sheets, and we are going to wrap up with workplace engagements. As I mentioned, hopefully we should have time to pause for questions at each of the transition points, and with any time we have left left, we will be sure to include questions of our presenters. So before I turn it on over to our first speaker, we do have a poll question that we want to ask everybody. This relates to what I was just talking about. And the question on the screen and a pop-up should occur. There we go. And we want to know, have you heard of these GSA workplace solutions? Any of the following, you can check all that apply. I just mentioned them all, but I'll recite them again. And that's the Workplace Innovation Lab, Federal Co-working, Inventory of Owned and Leased Properties, Vacant Space Marketing Packages, and Workplace Engagements. And if for some reason you didn't get a poll pop up on your screen, that's fine. You can use the chat to register your opinion. Give everybody just a moment or two. All right, I see some results coming in. So we are going to end the poll and we are going to show the results of the poll. And it looks like people have heard of everything to varying degrees. That's wonderful. So it looks like the Workplace Innovation Lab and Federal Co-working are two of the more popular, for lack of a better term, tools and resources that have been heard of. But also I see that a fair amount of folks have also heard of the IOLP, Vacant Space Marketing, and Workplace Engagement. So I'm glad to see all of that. That gives us just a general idea of how we're doing promoting our services and solutions to our customers. So we are going to get that poll question off the screen. And I'm going to transition over to our first speaker, and that is Ryan Booth, who is going to talk a little bit about the Workplace Innovation Lab.
All right, Eric, thank you. And welcome, everyone. It looks like we have an awesome group, close to 260 participants. And from what I've seen, at least in the poll, at least a lot of folks have heard about the, as we call internally, the WIL, which is really good to hear. Eric, I can go ahead and take this poll unless you want to handle it. But I guess one thing that we want to see is that one more poll question. Eric, do you want to handle this one?
Sure. Literally give you a break, but that's quite all right. We want to know if you've been to the Workplace Innovation Lab here in Washington, D.C. You have three options here, and yes, you've reserved space. Yes, you've no, I've never been, and I know this is a bit geographically skewed, but we are curious to know about any usage of our Workplace Innovation Lab at GSA headquarters, 1800 F Street, Northwest in DC. It's on the second floor if you're familiar with our building. But I do see that we have some users. That's fabulous. All right, so we're going to close the poll here, and it does look like, yes, we do have some users who have reserved space to work in the Workplace Innovation Lab. Ryan, we have others who have toured it. Vast majority have never been there. Again, perhaps you're not in the DC area. I did not participate in the poll, but I myself have reserved space and worked out of the Workplace Innovation Lab. If you are in the DC area, pay attention to what Ryan's going to say, because I highly recommend it. Ryan, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, Eric, great. Thank you. All right, so perfect segue. I think this really lends itself well to us getting into what the WIL is, how it came about. It looks like some folks have heard of it, but not a whole lot of people have been there. So I will do my best to kind of run through what it actually is, what it means. As Eric had mentioned earlier, I am Ryan Booth, GSA IT, as one of the co-creators of the Workplace Innovation Lab, mainly on the IT side. I'd like to kind of channel what Chuck really kind of talked about earlier on, is that he spoke about hybrid work. He spoke about the future of work. The future of work is kind of now. We're already kind of in it. And what I mean by that is, GSA really, and specifically GSA IT, we've really worked in sync to be, and we think of ourselves as really that innovative leader across the government when it comes to technology, but also in terms of workplace. We kind of started on this journey even pre-pandemic, looking into what the future of work would be. We had an effort that we called Workplace 2020. This was kind of around the 2010, 2011, 2012 era, looking at what the workspace would look like in that 2020 year. Fast forward to obviously the pandemic and what happened over the last few years. And the way that we worked pre-pandemic really has shifted. It shifted in the federal sector. It has shifted in the private sector, and agencies and companies are kind of scrambling to figure out what is the new way of working. What does it look like? What does hybrid mean? How much space do we need? So that really lend itself to GSA really kind of pushing on the gas and saying, hey, how can we help kind of push this along? How can we help our federal customers? How can we really demonstrate that we can actually bring and use technology to really change the game of what workplace looks like. So enter in the Workplace Innovation Lab. So what we decided that we wanted to do was that we wanted to take a cutout of our headquarters, as Eric mentioned, in Washington, D.C., 18th and F Street office. And we had a cutout of our second floor. There's 25,000 square feet. And what we did is we wanted to basically create a testing environment, a lab that really brings and showcases innovations in not only furniture and office design, but also bringing in technology. And we wanted to bring all those three things together to figure out there's got to be a way to meet the new wave of working. So that new hybrid approach is what we're hearing a lot. There's a lot of people spread across the country. There are a lot of people going into an office a day or two a week, maybe more, but there is that larger hybrid effort. And we really wanted to create an environment that brought those three pillars together to figure out, is there a new design that would work better for today's market? So as I mentioned, 25,000 square feet. What we did is we're offering this will. It's really a shared space model. And what that means is that it is in GSA's building, our headquarters, and traditionally it's only been GSA employees in that building. And what we've done is we've opened up our doors to other federal employees. So if you have a .mil or a .gov email address, what you can do is you can actually register and work from the Workplace Innovation Lab, which is in one of GSA's buildings. So this is an offering that Chuck and our team, we put together to see maybe this is a new model in the federal sector, kind of like the WeWork model, a co-working model. And John is going to speak a little bit about the co-working opportunities we have here in a bit. But it is a new way of thinking of bringing workers into kind of a physical building that might bring other agencies together. One thing about the will that's really cool is that it's very data focused, and that's probably the reason why I'm presenting, because I am in IT. We're going to get to a lot of the findings and all the data we've captured within the lab and some of the information that we were able to pull out of it. Another really cool and unique feature of the lab is that we have every neighborhood, as we call them, there are 6 of them. Every neighborhood is a different type of workspace. It's a different type of furniture. It's a different vendor. So we're not only using one type of furniture, it's a variety of things. So when you see some of the photos, we have couches, we have open collaboration, we have office space, we have touchdowns places, we have individual workstations. So it really is a blend of trying out kind of what we feel like could work and what the future might be. Again, so there is no cost and there's no agreement for any federal agencies to use the lab during the calendar year. Unfortunately, so we did open in January of this year. That's when our ribbon cutting was. And we're actually kind of winding down this iteration of the lab. But because it was so popular, we're in the midst of kind of redesigning and looking at our offerings for the future. There will be a different iteration. But if you have the opportunity to come in and tour it over the next month or so, it would be year. And this really was a great effort between all of GSA, PBS, FAS, which is our acquisition side, GSA IT, OAS, and our general counsel. Next slide. So I talked a little bit about technology. Oh, hopefully my audio kicks in. I did see my signal was down. But with regards to technology, the will is really infused with not only the newest furniture design, but also the technology. What we have in this space is some of our technology vendors have the latest and greatest collaboration, meeting space, and hybrid software platforms. So one of the really key things that we have in the space is that a lot of our endpoints and the video endpoints and the meeting space, we're using a Cisco product right now that allows us to access Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, Zoom, all of the different meeting platforms that all the agencies, not every agency uses the same platform. We tried to find a product that allows our users to access every one of those platforms with ease. There's 4K resolution video. The audio quality and performance we have and all of the equipment in the will is industry leading. We have things like digital whiteboarding, where if you're in the Workplace Innovation Lab with a group of people and you want to brainstorm, we literally have digital whiteboards where you can draw on a screen, download it, email it, and even push it to text. We in GSA IT created our own internal Wi-Fi network. So it is completely isolated and secure from the rest of the GSA building. So that way your data and your information stays secure. We have things like these open collaboration stadium seatings with massive big screen TVs. So you can sit at a couch and listen to a webinar with your colleagues. And then we also introduced solar films to a few sides of the building that fuel and power a lot of the lights in the Workplace Innovation Lab using something called Power over Ethernet, PoE. And essentially, you can have what looks like an Ethernet cord, but that actually uses solar film and energy to fuel and use energy for the lights in some of the monitors. Next slide. All right, so this slide is really the crux of the data. We have so much data, and if I talked about all of it, then I wouldn't have time for my other presenters. So I was told to keep it somewhat short, but I'm going to go through some of these infographics and talk a little bit about what we've seen from all of the data. So the top left there, you can see something where it says 4.3 out of 5 will customer experience rating. Every user that actually goes into the will and makes a reservation, they have an opportunity to take a survey and provide feedback. So we're tracking things like overall satisfaction, which you can see is fairly high. We're tracking things like how comfortable was the furniture? Did you like working with other people? How was the technology? Did you feel like your data is safe? We're tracking things like comfort level, accessibility. So we are tracking all aspects of customer feedback of how that experience was. Just below that, you can see that 1828 number. So we built out a separate reservation application where users of the will would create an account. You'd log in, and it's a self-service model where you can actually book a desk or a conference room at leisure, and then you can go in and actually sit in the will and work. The 1828 number is actually how many federal employees we actually have reserved, onboarded to the reservation application. And since August, we saw an 18% increase in the number of new users that kind of signed on. So we're still seeing a steady increase in folks and customers coming in and actually using the will. Just below that 3253, we're tracking every single individual meeting room reservation. We saw a significant increase from August. And then that number, 84% below, one of the feedback questions, we're asking people, how was your experience? But also, like, do you want to come back? Would you use the lab in the future? And an 84% rate, people said they would love to come back and use the lab. So again, I think it's something we are doing right. People are enjoying the space. So again, it's this data tracking for us to make more informed decisions down the road. The individual desk reservations, you can see that number is fairly high. We have a lot of people coming and booking regular desks. We are doing tours and demos. At the end of my part of the slide, there will be links and email addresses to request tours, to sign up for a reservation, to email our concierge. If you need any information on the will, we have an external website you can check. And the crazy stat here is the fact that the will itself, with all of the endpoints and sensors we have, we're capturing about 1,000 data points every 10 seconds. So you can imagine we have a lot of data, but those data points are helping Chuck and us in GSA IT make future decisions about what the future of work is going to look like. Next slide. So I mentioned some of the data. So we're also tracking data on how many people come in and use the space. So again, we have our own dedicated SSID or Wi-Fi network. So we're tracking the number of users even down to the minute and actually where in the building they're actually connecting from. So we can check trends and from essentially this wing is more popular than other wings. This conference room, people trend to stay in a little bit more, a little bit less. But again, you can see the trend of people. This is a bi-week chart, but the demand is fairly high. We have pretty good spikes during the week. On the weekends, not so much. But again, I just wanted to show that we are tracking the data of the number of people who are actually coming in and connecting to our actual will network. Next slide. So with all the data, there's a lot to synthesize, but what are some of the takeaways? And as I call them, nuggets. What are we actually seeing from anecdotally from customers in the will and actually seeing from the hard data? So on the conference room side, what we see is that 90% of the top 10 reserved rooms in our Workplace Innovation Lab have a capacity of 4 or more. So what we're really seeing is that people are coming in to use our conference rooms, but they're actually preferring those larger conference rooms. And the data even shows that the less fun rooms or the bottom 10 rooms that are actually being reserved and used, they have a room capacity of 3 or less. So when people are coming into an office, they're not being at home. We're seeing the trend of people are coming in with a larger group. They prefer a larger conference room. So with that being said, we could potentially outfit our next iteration of the will to have conference rooms as kind of a larger capacity to meet the needs of our customers. We're also tracking agencies. So we're able to tell who is actually coming in and using the conference rooms. I have a list of our top 6 here, our customers, Air Force, the VA, the Executive Office of the President, CDC, HHS, and our folks at the Senate have actually come in and used the will over the last several months. And those are our top returning customers as it stands today. So desks, we're doing kind of the same thing. We're able to identify and pinpoint even the most used and least used desk. But as I mentioned, we had 6 individual, I guess, neighborhoods, we call them. And the neighborhoods are broken out by the type of furniture. So most folks know Herman Miller Knoll. We have All Steel, Hayworth, GSA owned furniture, Swift Space, and Kimball. So we named them after the furniture vendors who participated in our pilot. And you can see that Miller Knoll seems to be fairly popular. There's a lot of reservations, individual desks there, followed by All Steel and so on and so forth. And you can see the top 6 agencies who actually come in and book the individual single desks within the lab. All right, so what are we hearing from our customers? So the data says one thing, but are the customers saying the same thing? So our external feedback is overwhelmingly positive. We have really good feedback from our customers that come in. Our agencies are coming to us and they're actually saying, hey, we want to come in, we want to use the will. We need larger collaboration space. We want larger meeting rooms. We want to do our town halls. We want to do these brainstorming sessions or breakout sessions. That's what we're seeing in the lab. And when you bring together a larger space and the right technology and the right furniture, it seems to be a really good blend. So that's kind of the trend that we're kind of working towards. And then lastly, that last bullet, our agencies and maybe folks on this call could attest to this as well, is that folks are coming back to us saying, hey, can you show us how your reservation application works? What does it mean to book a desk? You don't have your own desk. You have to, find a new one every time. So there's a lot of questions about that. They want support on how they can change their space to potentially maybe mirror what the will is. And they also want to know, hey, we want to create something similar because we want to attract folks in our agency to a type of space like the will in our own buildings. Next slide. So this slide is busy, but it's kind of meant to be. What I wanted to demonstrate here is you can see these photos. I know they're a little small, but the will is great because you can move furniture around pretty easy and you can kind of flex, move it where the type of environment that you want for the type of meeting. I have a list of a lot of bullets here, but the reason is that there is some significant, notable large-scale events that have taken place in our building in the will, and it's not just GSA space. We've had the White House in the lab a handful of times. We've had OMB in our lab a bunch. Other agencies have come in and asked and have fully executed town halls from our lab. The law enforcement community of practice have come by and they have actually ran one of their large-scale events. So like I said, it's not just people coming in and doing individual work. That is happening, but we have enormous federally agency-wide events coming into the lab to operate their kind of breakout sessions. Next slide. All right, so I mentioned we're very data heavy. So this is kind of a trend that we've seen since we opened in February through the actually just a few days ago. So we're able to track down to the specific agency or bureau who is actually using the space. So our friends over at VA are big users, followed by Air Force, the President, as I've mentioned, but we can actually track who's actually coming and using the space, which is really good because we can get feedback from those agencies to say, hey, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What do you like about it? And then we can translate that into kind of actionable decisions for kind of our decisions moving forward when it comes to the future of work. Next slide. Again, same trend here. These are our conference rooms, so a lot of the same players. But it's interesting. Our friends over at DoD, the Air Force, Army, we have a lot of those folks coming in to use the lab. Executive Office of the President, their close proximity to our building in DC. The White House is just a couple blocks away, so it's easy to walk over. But again, we have not just 1 or 2 agencies. It's really spread among a large swath of the federal community. Next slide. This stat's pretty interesting. We're also tracking what days of the week are popular. Are people coming in on Monday or a Friday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday? So we can get a flavor of, it looks like by our data, that Wednesday is the busiest day that we have in the will. Obviously, Mondays and Fridays are a little slow for obvious reasons, but the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday grind seems to be when we're seeing a lot of traffic in the will. And again, this data is really allows us to make kind of more informed decisions of our space, kind of looking outward into the future. Next slide. And so that was a lot. I will pause here for questions on the will. Here are a couple links if you want to take a picture or write these down. If you're in the DC area or if you're not, but you want to come in and actually work from the lab, you can, the reservation site is right there. You set up a profile and you can go ahead and book your own space. We have an external site for more information on our gsa.gov site, our offerings page. If you want to book a tour, send an email to that email address. I would do it within the next month and a half. And then if you have any questions for our concierge team, you can use that email address as well. So Eric, I'll kind of pause there. I know I ran through a lot of information, but are there any questions?
You did. We had a question about tours. So we have at least one interested person who wants to bring their team for a tour. We answered that question, as did you here. We have one open question that seems right up your alley. A customer would like to know if the reservation system is a COTS product or a custom development.
Ooh, great. Must be an IT person. Great question. So it is.
I figured as much, Ryan.
Yep, it is. It is a COTS, commercial off-the-shelf product. So it is a tool that was already basically kind of built out. GSA actually had to make some minor configuration changes, but yes, it is a COTS product. There are a number of different COTS products on the market that can do this, but this was one of the products that we felt kind of had the best user experience for our customers. And we, obviously GSA, we're trying to shy away from that, customized build as that gets a little expensive. But yes, a long-winded way of saying it is a COTS product.
The follow-up from the same customer wants to know if it's Book It.
So great question. So GSA does use an instance of Book It now, but the application is not. The name of the tool is run by a firm called PlaceOS, PLACE-OS, like operating system. But no, I am familiar with Book It, but it is not Book It.
Excellent. We have one more that I want to get to now, and then we'll, in the interest of time, move on. But we do see your open questions. Can you just reiterate the timeline of this iteration of the Workplace Innovation Lab?
Yep, good question. So we opened in January of this year. We are shrinking some of the Workplace Innovation Lab due to kind of a restacking what we have going on in our building. We basically have 3 wings in the lab right now, and we were going to operate those three wings until the end of November. And then at what point in time we're going to actually decommission 2 of the wings. So we'll be left with 1 wing in the current lab. And then in the meantime, that will be open. That 1 wing will be open through June. And then at that point in time, we are going to be opening up a 2nd wing on a different floor sometime in the late spring, early summer timeline. But all of that information and updates can be found at that workplace.gsa.gov/offerings innovation lab to keep tabs on any changes or updates. But yes, the current a smaller version will be open through June. I think I saw costs. I'll answer that. The will is free right now, so I guess get it while you can.
Sorry, I was having
Eric,
some issues there. I'm back here. I will say, get it while you can. Absolutely agree. Ryan is an extreme data person, and this was a detailed presentation. I am the exact opposite, and I love the will as well to work out of. So highly recommend. So thank you, Ryan. You can see if any other questions come in about the will, feel free to put them into the Q&A pod to our customers. We're going to transition to the next part of our presentation now, which is about federal co-working. And before we dive in, once again, we have a quick poll question that we want to ask. And we want to know very simply, have you ever worked in one of PBS's federal co-working sites? We have 6 that debuted earlier this year. They are in 6 of our regional office buildings. They are in Tacoma, Washington, San Francisco, Denver, Kansas City, Missouri, Chicago, Philadelphia, or of course, no, I've never been to one. If the pop-up's not working for you, feel free to answer in the chat. Again, this is a geography-based question, but we would love to know what your experiences have been with our federal co-working sites. I'll give just a moment or two. All right, I do see some responses, so we can end the poll here and we can publish the results. Not overwhelming amount of usage, but Jana, you will see that we do have a good spread of folks who've been to Tacoma and San Francisco, which is, I think, one of our more heavily used one, but it looks like Denver and Philadelphia, at least for this group, are places where our customers have done federal co-working. So thank you very much for providing us with that information. I'm going to transition over the presentation for Jana Larson, who's going to introduce and talk a little bit more about federal co-working.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I'm actually really happy with those results. We've only been open since July, so just a few months, and we only have 6 sites open. So I'm really happy. Some of you all have been there, and I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback on that as well. I'm going to define co-working because we did have a really high number of people that have already heard about the service. That may change after I define it a little bit more, but Ryan did a great presentation on the will, and I want to say they have set the bar pretty high for us. The will has although you can co-work out of the will, they have a little bit of a different goal or mission. So they will always have new products, technology, and furniture, and they're testing those products and solutions on how it affects the hybrid culture, and will continue to test products as the will iterates. Co-working, we're really focused on what do we need to provide, what are the requirements for you and your agencies to utilize shared space. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so what I'm talking about here is federal agencies sharing federal space. So there is a commercial contract available, and we call that commercial co-working. That's not what we're touching on today. However, we'll drop a link in the chat there. So if you're interested in that product, you can dive into it. There was another enrichment series on that, that topic. Next slide. Okay, Eric, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Time for another poll that is not geographically centric, and we want to know about your attitudes and behaviors a little bit. We'll have this poll question come up on the screen, but I'll read it out. We want to know, when you come into an office, what primarily brings you there? And is it to meet in person with colleagues from your team? Is it to attend a training or professional development event? Is it to meet with others virtually by phone or video? Is it to connect socially? Or is it to meet with peers or other outside of your team? All right, we have a good variety of responses coming in. I appreciate everybody's opinions here. Still see some numbers ticking up, so I'm going to give another moment or two. And again, if you're unable to see the pop-up, you can always participate in the chat pod. All right, so we will close it there, and we will publish the results. It's a very good spread of results here, but it looks like we had 66% of respondents talk about meeting in person with colleagues from the team. We had 31% want to talk about attending a training or a development in person. We had about 10% to meet with others virtually or by phone or video. Quarter, 24% to connect socially. I'll add anecdotally that coming into the office really does satisfy the extrovert in me. I am a hybrid worker, and there's a difference in the two for me. And then 43% with the final answer, it is to meet with peers or others outside of your team. So, Jana, turn it back on over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And me too, Eric. I am an extrovert and love to come back and see my people face to face inside the office. And Sam is going to go over a little bit of the data that we've learned since July and opening the prototype sites. But we see that it's pretty consistent with the answers that you guys just gave. We do know that if you come in to meet socially or come in for a training, we'll never get outside of the need for individual desks that offer privacy, because there are going to be instances where you're going to have to meet with people over video or calls and do some individual work, even if you're socializing in between. But what we want to understand more in the next year is how much of that space do we need to dedicate to large conference collaborative meetings, the meeting space that you need that's maybe smaller. What type of amenities do you want and need to share space? And then pulling all of that together, offering IT and security, and packaging that in a shared space environment. So all of these things you can experience while sharing it with others. That drops the price down for you. Next slide. So some more benefits is we really want to maintain a frictionless environment, meaning you can move in and move out with very little lead time. There's also very little investment. So the space is already built out for you to use. It has the furniture, IT, and personnel required to support the space. You just move into it. So that will offer a much more flexible solution, right? You can use it for gaps in services. Let's say that you have a lease expiring and the space that you need is not going to be available for several months. Instead of extending that lease, perhaps you can move into the shared space environment and use it in a short term. Or if you have the need for surge capacity, so your space, you want to have a large meeting somewhere and your space does not necessarily accommodate that, you can use it just for that day and then go back to your own assigned space. And we would love to see customers that are willing to use the space in lieu of traditional space as well. Next slide. Okay, so prototype sites are open. I mentioned we opened these just a few months ago in July. So they've been open since July 5th. Next slide. They are similar to the will. It was a space that was already assigned to PBS. So we just carved out space in 6 different locations to open up our doors and share with customers. The name of the game here is data. So like I said, we're building the requirements for the program that we're going to deliver in the future. And we want to understand how you will use it, how often you will use it, and what we basically need to provide to be able to support your missions within the space. Next slide. Okay, so here they are. We have Tacoma, San Francisco, Philly, Kansas City, Denver, and Chicago. Like I said, we have not changed the space. So we haven't made a significant investment in furniture or design. It was PBS assigned space that we used to use and occupy. We still do, but we've invited you to share it. So that's a low cost, no cost implementation of these prototype sites, but it does allow us to learn a lot from you. The cost is nothing right now as we're running the prototype. But we will ask you for feedback. So it's free, but the price is sharing your experience with us. Next slide. Okay, let's go to a poll, Eric.
Thank you very much. And we want to know, would you be willing to use one of the co-working sites as a look? Oh, sorry, I got a pop-up blocking my screen. But you can see on the screen here, we do want to know, would you be willing to use one of the co-working sites if there was a location near you? Yes or no? Still see a lot of people checking the boxes and responding to the poll, so we'll just give it just another moment here. All right, things are leveling out. Let's end the poll and show that a full 80% of folks have responded that yes, they would if there was a co-working site near your house. 79% and 21% said that they would not.
Great, that's wonderful to hear, and I look forward to seeing you guys all use the program. If you go to the next slide, I'll show you how to sign up to participate. All right, so of course this is a slide presentation and we have all the links in it, but you will see the links dropped into your chat there. It's pretty simple. You just go to the website and register to participate in a location near you, and a GSA PBS point of contact will reach out to you and help you orient into the space. We are looking for individuals, groups and teams, organizations, no matter like how big or small the group is. We'd really love to see you in the space and hear your feedback to help us build the program in the future. Next slide. Okay, so as promised, Sam, if you're on the line, can you go through a little bit of the data we're seeing so far?
Yes, thank you, Jana. The data that we have so far is really exciting. We have data from several different points, and I'll kind of explain where we're getting all that information from. But needless to say that all the information that we're getting from the program is informing the future state of the program. Our initial survey asked for broad feedback, regardless of if people are expecting to participate in the program. We have almost 1,200 people who've responded to that initial survey so far. The intake is people who are preparing to use the program and go through the orientation process. Our check-in captures the unique visits, which is currently through a QR code at the site of people who are going to co-work that day. And our checkout survey gathers feedback based on their experience in co-working on that particular visit. So we have a lot of really great data that is informing different aspects of the process and different aspects of the program. Next slide, please. So we've learned a whole lot from all those different data sets. We've got a ton of feedback. It's not a black hole of data. We're doing something with this information. We're doing a lot with this information and building the program based off of the feedback that we're getting so far. These are just a few of the highlights that we're getting from the data, along with some insights for next steps. The majority of those who have visited a site are planning to return, which is great feedback, also in keeping with some of the feedback from the WIL so far. Those who prefer to work hybrid are the most receptive to the co-working program so far. Those who work remotely tend to use the space mostly for meetings or if they're required to, and I think we saw some of that in the chat here as well. Private spaces or private rooms for taking calls and meetings are really important, as well as are some of the ancillary equipment like monitors and keyboards. Those might help to enhance people's co-working experience. Adding locations where people live may increase the likelihood of use, since the commute was some of the feedback that we got that were barriers to adoption or barriers to use for people using the program. And of course, messaging this as a flexible option that people can opt in versus mandating use is really important, because requiring people to use something can sometimes have a negative lens on the program. Next slide, please. So we're learning a ton is the answer to this question, but we'll go into different aspects of what we're learning specifically from different lenses about our space and the program itself. This first slide is showing us different lenses of customer profiles. We're learning that people are creatures of habit. That's not terribly new information, but there's a huge requirement. There's a breakdown in person, the remote flexibility that people who are working from home I'm sorry, Jonna, can you sub in here? My child is asking for something. I just got a little distracted here. I'm sorry.
100%. I'm here for you. So speaking of working from home, so we're looking at the data that we're looking at here is broken out into people that already work the majority remote in their remote time. And then we have the hybrid. So they have a split between the office and at home, and then the majority in person. And what you can see, like Sam said, people are creatures of habit. So the remote folks tend to see the #1 driver back into the office is the fact somebody told them to do it. But you can see in person, those social benefits are much higher for them. So they see that there's a benefit in coming into the office, but they already are coming into the office. And then, as you would expect, hybrid somewhere in between. So what we'd like to do with this effort is to get people to test it. And what we're finding is once we do get people to come in, it changes their perspective a little bit. And we'll know over time if that has a significant impact on this reality for these people. Next slide.
Thanks, Jonna. Remote work on a half day with school kids. I appreciate that. So in our space utilization findings, finding out what customers were doing while visiting a site is really important information. Even though the space needs to be geared towards interaction, we have to still include appropriate spaces for privacy and taking video conference calls. Hybrid's gonna hybrid. People are gonna be taking those video conference calls, whether they're at home or in the office. This is great information for us as we look at requirements for future co-working spaces, whether we're using our own spaces as they currently exist or designing new ones in the future. Next slide, please. We've asked different perspectives, whether they're coworkers or decision makers making decisions about their real estate use. In looking at roadblocks or barriers to adopting from the decision maker profile, there are some roadblocks to co-working for some coworker customers, with privacy and security concerns rising to the top. These reflect the barriers for decision makers in the agencies, not necessarily the actual coworkers themselves in adopting co-working. This, along with the change management challenges associated with a new program offering, can be better addressed through more experimental use of the program and sharing that feedback with GSA. So it helps not only us develop the program further, but also customers get more comfortable with some of these concerns that they've expressed in adopting co-working. Next slide, please. We're happy to report that many of our co-working end users were largely satisfied with the experience, stating there were no obstacles or barriers to their co-working success. Those who were hesitant to return simply preferred to work from home remotely. Those who are, in general, commutes continue to be a challenge with getting people back to the office. Being able to better address these issues may inform site locations in the future. You can see here the satisfaction rate with few people encountering barriers while co-working, which is great news. People aren't asking for a whole lot. The feedback we do have is more closely related to logistics of mobile work and having a place to store their personal items. This information is all crucial to help GSA address barriers to co-working and how we can make it a better experience. Next slide. The use of co-working amenities is different depending on the customer agency's security status. But in either case, conference spaces and open seating workspaces are the two top resources in our workspaces. High security agencies value conference rooms even higher and also leverage the use of private office spaces. Next slide. There are many reasons why we think co-working works, but these are the reasons agency decision makers feel like they could adopt co-working as part of their space solutions toolkit. The flexibility of co-working is an exceptional addition or alternative solution to existing real estate options. In addition to workplace flexibility, employees may benefit from the social and connected experience of co-working. And these are just a few of the open-ended responses about a program. We're thrilled to have had a positive impact on the working life of these individuals. And we have another poll, Eric.
It is time for another poll. This is a would you rather. And if you aren't able to see the pop-up, would you rather? Oh, there, it comes right up on my screen. All right, would you rather work in a smaller location closer to your home, or would you rather work in a larger location among your colleagues? Floor is open for questions, and I see we have competing responses coming in here. Still getting a few responses. Again, we want to know, would you rather work in a smaller location closer to your home address, or would you rather work in a larger location among your colleagues? All right, I think we have hit maximum capacity here, so let's end the poll and share the results. And we have, by a factor of almost 4-1, if my math is right on that, 79 to 21%, working in a smaller location closer to your home address. I believe we were talking about commutes just a moment ago, versus 21% for work in a larger location among your colleagues.
Hey, Eric, that also tracks with what we're hearing from other people. You saw on that one slide that Sam shared that the major deterrent for people is getting stuck in traffic. That's just not going to start your day off well, and it's not going to end it well. And we do have, like, our inventory, a lot of our inventory is within city centers, and we're using our headquarters building assigned to PBS right now for the sites. But we do want to explore how co-working works where people live. So looking at population densities and moving closer to where people live instead of city centers. So it's good to hear that the data tracks as well with you guys here in the audience.
And I think if we put a third option of just staying at home, I'm curious to see how the data would also align with some of the coming into office requirements that we saw in our data as well. But trying to get data to inform the co-working program, we appreciate you guys responding to that survey question. Thank you. So what's next for the co-working program? Again, we're taking all of the data that we've gotten so far, all the feedback from our customers. We continue to work with customers, even on a one-to-one basis, to ask for their opinions and how we can make this program, stay at home for sure, how we can make this program even better. Next slide, please, Jen. We're looking to make a lot more improvements, many more improvements, not only in the program, but also in our spaces. We're really excited to announce that we have a co-working reservation system, which is expected to go live this spring. That will eliminate some of the somewhat clunky things that we have so far to kind of get us by right now, which is the QR process that I mentioned before. We're really excited to have that simplify some of the processes for our customers as well as ourselves. That'll also give us a different lens of data, which we can better inform our process and our programs. Our rent exemptions, which basically make the program free, are active through 2024. And we're also working through the billing mechanisms and pricing processes to develop the program further and make it a more long-standing program and offering for GSA. We're figuring out the different funding strategies so we can continue to invest in the spaces, the services, and the offerings that we have associated with co-working, so it can continue to be a valuable resource for our customers. And then, of course, exploring the feasibility of additional locations or other locations. One critical piece of data that we have here, and also from you all in our poll question just now, residential location seems to be maybe the next frontier for co-working. So where do we have locations that maybe suit that, or where does it make sense for GSA to potentially invest in locations based on residential information that we may have access to, as well as mass transit routes to inform the commute information that we have as well. So all of this is where we're kind of investing our time and resources for FY24. There's a lot more to come, and we're so grateful for all the data that we have so far, and that just keeps coming into the program to just make it that much more valuable and hopefully that much more impactful as an offering that GSA will have. So thank you, and I will pass it back to Jen.
All right, thanks, Samantha. All right, so Valerie and I are going to walk you through the next tool, which is the inventory of owned and leased properties, also referred to as IOLP. So as federal agencies are leveraging telework and changing work styles, there have been some major changes in space utilization. This unused, unneeded space presents a financial risk for the government and is in the best interest of the taxpayer to explore these backfill opportunities of vacant space wherever possible. To help ensure that our customers and GSA have the tools needed to explore these opportunities, in 2022, GSA created a team to look at the tool to make sure that it was providing the best user experience for our customers. During this review, GSA surveyed multiple customers to obtain feedback in order to make some modifications. Like any tool, there are some restrictions due to the software platform capabilities. And we also mentioned that because of that this is a public-facing site, there are some additional information restrictions due to security. So as Valerie walks through the tool, please keep in mind that there are some security restrictions that are limiting some of the information shared. And so I'll discuss the details of these restrictions a little later in the presentation. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Valerie, who's going to provide a little bit more information. Oh, you're on mute, Valerie.
Of course. Thanks, Jennifer, and hello, everyone. So the inventory of owned and leased properties, or IOLP, is a GIS web-based platform that provides you, our customers, and the public with complete transparency and the ability to search GSA's vacant, owned, and leased spaces. Next slide. So let's take a closer look at the IOLP. I'm going to share my screen, Jennifer. Okay. My screen?
Not quite yet.
No.
Uh-oh. Let's try this again.
There we go.
All right. Okay. So this is our landing page for the inventory for IOLP on gsa.gov, which highlights some of the features of the tool, which I will get into shortly. But from here, you can click on the link, which opens up the landing page for the tool itself, which you can absolutely save as a bookmark for future reference. When you first come into the IOLP tool, you're presented with a splash screen with instructions on how to use the tool. You can actually download these instructions as a PDF. So we have navigating the map with typical pan and zoom functions, just like other maps. I want to highlight these 3 icons here. It explains what those can do for you. It talks about executing the 3 predefined queries that we have here on the screen, and what results will actually be returned for you. We also have some information here about working with the query results, where you get a return list first, which I will show you in a second, as well as the pop-up when you do click on a location. We also have a feature or a button where you can export the results once you get your results in the results window here, which I will show you in a second. And these results can be exported out to an Excel spreadsheet. What we also have included recently are the walk and transit scores that represent the general accessibility of the location and surrounding area by walking or public transit. And we actually have included a link to the Walk Score website to give you more detail. So I'm just going to click OK to clear this splash screen. And I want to click on the legend. So we don't actually have it on the map, but it is here to show you that all owned buildings will be a blue square and all lease locations will be a large red circle. The smaller red circles indicates an individual lease item. So I want to touch on, so as I said, we have 3 predefined searches. The first search is the one typically you, our customers, and the general public will most likely use. The Hill or Capitol Hill also use IOLP as well when they want to search either by state or congressional district. And then they also use this one very heavily to search by senator or representative name. So for today's purpose, I'm going to click on the more general search. And you have 3 sections here. You have by geography, by vacant usable square feet, or by lease expiration. As you can see here, the state is required. All other fields are optional. So I'm just, for today's demonstration purposes, we're going to search in New York, and I'm going to put in a minimum value for vacant of 20,000. And then a maximum value of 50,000, and click the search button. As you can see here, you get your search window changes to show you your results in a list format. You can click on each one of these locations and it would zoom to that location on the map. You can also clear your results, start all over again, or you can export them to an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this lease here, and there it brings you to a information card or pop-up for that location. I do want to mention that the location code is very important to us to identify the location should you make an inquiry about this particular lease location. It does give you general information about the location, the address, what region it's in. And then here it shows you that it fell within our requirements for vacant usable square feet of 23,167. It also shows the walk score, transit score, and congressional information. And if you scroll to the bottom, we have incorporated specific POCs for you, our federal customers. And there's a live link if you want to type them in the email or send them an email with your inquiry about this location. So of course, it does not give, when you first land on a location, because this is a lease location, if you arrow over, it shows that there's one of two information cards here. And when I arrow over for this particular location, it then shows you the actual lease number, the lease effective date, lease expiration date, and the vacant usable square feet, as well as the other information brought over from the first call. So that was lease, that's a lease location. Now I'm going to click on one of our own. And again, similar information, the location code, address. This particular property fell within our search values with vacant square feet of 36,071. Again, same information, walk score, congressional information, and a live link to a POC that you can reach out to inquire about this particular location. I do also want to mention that the IOLP is refreshed weekly on Fridays, and that pretty much wraps up a quick tutorial of the IOLP. And back over to you, Jennifer.
All right, great. Thanks, Valerie. Let me just pull back up the presentation here. All right, hopefully you guys can see everything okay. And hopefully you found Valerie's preview of the tool helpful. So let's just discuss some ways in which our customers would use IOLP. IOLP, along with our new vacant space marketing packages, are tools to help guide our customers through the requirements development process in order to help find space available in order to meet your mission's needs. A customer could use this to research what space might be available in the market, whether you have an existing lease that is nearing expiration or maybe a brand new space requirement. This can help you see what's available. If there's an existing location that you think might meet your need, you can also use this to help refine your space requirements. So maybe there's a building where you could reduce your requirements from 5,000 square feet, maybe down to 4,000, just so you could fit within the vacant block that's available. You could also use this to help define your delineated areas. So next I'm going to talk about the vacant space marketing packages. These were really developed as a supplement to the IOLP tool. Before I show the marketing package itself, first let's discuss when you will see these. So as you search through IOLP and maybe you find a location that you want to consider, you would reach out to the federal contact that's listed within the IOLP tool to request a vacant space marketing package. This package will give you more detailed information. You will also see the marketing packages provided during the client project agreement process if the region is recommending to backfill an existing federal or lease location. So here you're going to see a snapshot of this two-page marketing package. And so I'm going to dive in to take a little bit closer look at what kind of detail is on each one. So here you'll see the top of the marketing sheet, really just general building information. So you'll see how much space is available. You'll see the address, who you can contact. You'll also see over here on the right-hand side, just when this data was pulled. So this was actually pulled last month when I was prepping for this presentation, but I should have pulled it right before this meeting so it was fresh. So at the bottom here, you'll see more details. So you'll see the region, you'll see the building type owned or leased, the space type, office, how much space is vacant, the building size. You'll see the building RU factor. You'll see the rental rates for lease, which is about $25 per rentable square foot. You'll see the building location code. Again, Valerie mentioned this is very important to us, just helps us find information on this building quickly. You'll see information on the congressional district, how many stories, the number of elevators, passenger and freight, loading docks, parking availability, as well as the parking rate. And then at the bottom, you'll see there's a link to that workplace website, which can give you other available space options. Next, I'm going to show you the second page. So this is where you'll get a little more details. So you'll see here at the top, you have the building address, and then this is where the regions are able to customize and provide more details about the building. So for example, for this location, it's close to a bus station. It's nearby other federally owned buildings. There's ample dining and shopping options around it, and it's located in a central business district. For diving in a little bit further to the building itself, the building has a coffee shop located in the lobby. There's a fitness center for employees. There's a private room for new mothers, childcare center, a joint use conference room, and it's also wheelchair accessible. And then diving in a little bit further, they'll be able to list additional space features, such as if the space is available on the first floor, it's perfect for cubicles and offices. There's 5 existing conference rooms. There's also a break room with a refrigerator, updated and modern finishes, and it's fully wired. And then on the right here, you can see they're able to customize and provide some additional photos. So these are just some of the things that we know customers are interested when looking at vacant space. So as I mentioned before, there are some restrictions, and really this is due to the fact that IOLP is a public facing site, as well as these marketing sheets are restricted to fall in line with FOIA guidelines. So because this is these are put in paper, we just got to make sure that we don't provide a lot of information that could be security sensitive. So for example, we can't share like the details of the space. So like if it's mission specific, such as a data center, secured space, laboratory, we really have to keep it restricted to general space types. We also are not able to break down the rental rates to operating costs. We can't provide the building security levels within the sheet. We can't tell you what other agencies are within the building. We also can't provide the floor plans or Google Maps. Google Maps is more due to just copyright restrictions. However, with all that being said, we can provide this upon request to the region. It just can't be in a formal document such as the marketing sheet due to FOIA. So let's talk about data of the marketing sheet. So the data that's pulled for the marketing sheets is updated daily. However, there are some restrictions. So we only can work with the data that's in our systems, and there's always going to be a little bit of a gray area when it comes to making sure it's accurate. And I'm talking specifically about if there's a space that's committed for another agency and it hasn't been committed in our system to pull it out of the vacant space, that's where we might see some discrepancies. Also, buildings that are slated for disposal, we do have to wait till buildings get to a certain point in the process before we'll pull it out of the system. And so that might be one of the reasons why a building's showing vacant space that's not available. And then lastly, upcoming space releases, because space releases are kind of a moving point in time, square footages kind of change as the agency's working through that release. We also are not showing that. So, what does that mean? So, you look at IOLP, then you get your marketing sheet that gives you a little bit more information. And what we're really trying to do is just help you narrow down what some options are. Once you kind of narrow things down based on the information that we've provided you, then the expectation is that you would reach out to the region and you'd have a more in-depth conversation, you'd tour the space, and you'd figure out if the space really works for you. So we hope that you find the IOLP and the marketing packages helpful to help you find available space solutions for your agency. And so with that, I think we have about 15 minutes left, but we still have one more short topic, but I wanted to see if there's any questions related to IOLP or vacant space.
Now, there have been some Q&As answered in the pod, and I think some that we'll take offline require a little bit more of a deeper dive. I do see some of those questions coming in, so let's just move on to the final part of our presentation.
All right, great. Thanks, Eric. All right, I'm going to turn over to Samantha. Great. Thanks, Jennifer. Workplace engagements are an exciting and essential part of the workplace toolkit. They're an opportunity to right-size our real estate and transform the federal portfolio. Next slide, please. They aren't a new resource, but we've updated the process and are asking different kinds of questions as our work has shifted into a much more hybrid-centric conversation. It's always been about people, place, and technology, But now it's a much more balanced triangle these days, with technology becoming a much more critical factor in the way we do our work and how it impacts the people and the place part of the equation. Workplace engagements can look very different, and they can be tailored to the needs of the agency and the desired outcome. In addition to program development, workplace engagements can deliver charrettes, policy planning, and much more. There's so much to dive into with workplace engagements, from how we contract for them to how they are facilitated. We're looking forward to having a much more in-depth session offered in the future through the CES series. So keep an eye out for that, hopefully in the next couple of months through this platform. Next slide, please. These are just a few resources. Here you'll see the links to explore the offerings that we discussed today. We have a few simple asks that you sign up for federal co-working, check out the ILLP, go visit the Innovation Lab next time you're in DC, and explore our workplace engagement services. We're so glad to have these resources available and looking forward to expanding them. Eric, I'll pass it off to you.
All right, thank you very much, Sam, and thank you to the entire gang. We've had a lot of great questions coming in. Again, some of them I think require a little bit of a deeper dive. We have some questions about pricing for federal co-working, which Jana, I think will probably want to reference the pricing desk guide for. And we do have some other questions about if GSA has quantified data on cost savings from employees working from home. I don't know if we have that because it's kind of a rolling process as we start planning space. You can reduce your footprint based on your actual need. And for that, I will actually put in a plug for a tool that was not mentioned today, and that is the WIFM tool, WIFM. And that is another offering that is available on our workplace site, the website of which I believe is going into the chat, that allows our customers to model their future space locations to identify the exact right amount of space that they need based on the actual daily usage of their personnel, and therefore potentially saving costs based on the hybrid workforce. So I'll put a plug in for that. We had a couple of questions about just how to get in touch and how to get more information. And I know that we've had some people answer those questions, but again, I do want to just plug the website, the workplace.gsa.gov website, which is the hub for all of that information. So I do want to click on, do we have one more poll on the next slide? I think that we may have one more upcoming. Excellent. All right, so I want to bring this up here. Kind of a nice little coda to our presentation. And so we do want to know that sort of as a result of what we learned today, what are you more interested in exploring of all the things that we heard? Is that the Workplace Innovation Lab, federal co-working, the inventory of owned and leased properties, vacant space marketing packages, and then of course the workplace engagements. It is a multiple choice question, so it is not select your favorite, which is great because I see the numbers going up. All right, I think we can close it out. We have more than half of our respondents, up to about 55, 56%, who are very interested in the inventory of owned and leased properties. Then we have a similar amount in the Workplace Innovation Lab. I will stress, if you are interested in the Workplace Innovation Lab and you are in the DC area, please get up on your horse and schedule a tour in the very near future before the current iteration sunsets and we have a transition to a different iteration of the Workplace Innovation Lab. We have 46% who are interested in federal co-working, 35% in vacant space marketing packages, and then we have about 23% in workplace engagements. I have a question that came in and was responded that I did want to pull out. I'm going to aim this one at Jana because it's about federal co-working. Jonna, I know we have the 6 sites currently, and you explained how we selected them. Can you talk about potential new sites, locations, where we're looking? We had someone specifically call out New York, and I know that your team is looking at the next steps for federal co-working. How will you go about evaluating next geographic areas?
Certainly. Thank you, Eric. And I did see that question in there, and I was excited to see New York mentioned because we are working with other regions, Atlanta, we'll be talking to them about space that they may have available in their PBS assigned space to be able to add to the prototype site locations. So that is not off the table. We are looking to expand the offering. We are getting feedback as well, and I want to plug the survey and the intake form again to have people give us feedback, because we are listening to that feedback to help determine where to go next. We would like to look at something different too, like Sam mentioned looking at suburbs where people live, just to see the effect that co-working sites have in that type of space as well. One more plug too for your national account managers. You can always reach out to them to speak with Sam or I directly too, if you want to use co-working in some level of future portfolio planning as well.
Oh, you're on mute, Eric.
I was indeed on mute. I was just reiterating that absolutely we will post those links both in the chat, and I think they may be in the docs. I will reiterate as we start to wind down. I see it's getting to the bottom of the hour, that we are going to be sending out a copy of the slides. We will ensure that the links are all functional, and also highlight that main link, the workplace.gsa.gov site. That is kind of your one-stop shop, because these are the new tools for the new workplace, but we've had some existing tools that preceded this. We will have some follow-on tools that will come on. So we want to make sure that we promote that central hub as best we can. And then, of course, there are some open questions that we are going to capture, and our subject matter experts are going to provide formal written responses to. And all of the questions, the ones that we've answered live, the ones that we answer after the fact, we will put into a formal Q&A document, make that available to you when it's ready, and always post it on www.gsa.gov/CES so that you can access it at just about any time. So I do want to thank all of our presenters today. We had quite a few of them. Special thanks to Chief Architect Chuck Hardy for kicking it off today. I want to thank the hundreds of customers who came today and asked some great questions. Hopefully we piqued your interest in our new tools for the new workplace, and that we will be seeing you in the Will or a co-working space coming up in the very near future. But I'd also like to see you come back for some of our upcoming virtual client enrichment series sessions. We have our quarterly eReader Digest session. That's on November 14th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern. You can register for that right now. If you are part of the RWA process, whether you are new to it or you want a refresher in how to use eReader, which is our electronic RWA submission and management system, highly recommend that class. We are taking the month of December off, and we are coming back January of 2024 on the 18th, where we will have a program on cost estimating and cost management. It's always a very popular program. So we hope that you will come back and join us for that. So one more time, on behalf of myself, the CES team, and all of our presenters today, I do want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I will remind everyone that the goal of the Client Enrichment Series is to engage our audience in workplace topics that contribute to your mission success and to the effective management of your real estate and workplace programs. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you at our next session.